The most horrifying thing was not the moment the SUV burst into flames in the middle of the desert, nor when the ventilator stopped its rhythm and the doctors whispered only a few more days left. It was the moment a man who once made all of Las Vegas tremble in fear lay motionless, helpless, hearing the voice of a complete stranger whispering beside his ear, "I don't know who you are, but no one deserves to lie here all alone like this. No one." That sentence, soft, trembling, asking for nothing in return, shattered something inside Vincent Russo. Something that hundreds of bullets, billions of dollars, and an entire criminal empire had never been able to touch. And when a 2-year-old girl burning with fever and shaking climbed onto the chest of that comatose man, placing her tiny hand over a heart that had nearly stopped beating, could the voice of the poorest woman in the city truly have the power to pull a powerful monster back from the brink of death? Or would that very moment unleash an even more horrifying tragedy when love collided with blood and power? Listen closely, because this story begins with a whisper in the darkness and ends beneath a sky full of stars that no one dared believe could be real. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Alex Truths and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. Alright, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. The neon lights of Las Vegas never reached the cracked asphalt of the West Side trailer park where Maria Thompson lived. October winds howled through the thin aluminum walls of her single-wide rattling, the loose window pane she had taped shut with cardboard and duct tape. Inside, the air was cold enough to see her breath. The electricity had been cut off 3 days ago again, and the only light came from a half-melted candle stub flickering on the Formica counter. Maria sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, counting the last $7.42 in crumpled bills and loose change. Lily, her 2-year-old daughter, slept fitfully on the only mattress wrapped in every blanket they owned. The little girl's cheeks were flushed with the beginning of a fever. Maria's stomach twisted with a hunger that had become familiar, a constant ache that no longer surprised her. She had not eaten a full meal in 4 days. The diner had cut her shifts again, and the hospital cleaning job paid only every 2 weeks. Rent was already 11 days late. The landlord had left another red notice taped to the door that morning, 3 more days or eviction. She pressed her thin fingers to her temples, trying to quiet the dizziness that came from too little food and too much fear. She had been 24 when Lily was born, alone in a county hospital, no one to hold her hand. The father had vanished the moment the test turned positive. Maria had promised herself then that her daughter would never know the kind of cold, empty nights she had known growing up in foster homes. Yet here they were, colder and emptier than ever. Across the city, in the glass and steel penthouse atop the Eclipse Casino, Vincent Russo stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Strip. 44 years old, fair-skinned, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people earned in a year, he was the man everyone in Las Vegas feared, and few dared to name aloud. The Russo family had ruled the shadows of the city for 2 generations. Casinos, construction, waste management, all legitimate on paper, all feeding the darker machinery beneath. Vincent had inherited the throne young, and ruled it with an iron hand wrapped in silk. He was wealthy beyond measure, powerful beyond question, and utterly alone. His twin sons, Luca and Matteo, slept in the East Wing, under the watchful eyes of nannies and armed guards. 3 years old, identical except for the faint scar on Luca's chest from his latest surgery. The boy's rare illness ate through money faster than any rival ever could. Specialists flown in from Switzerland, experimental treatments, private wings of hospitals bought for a single night. Vincent paid without hesitation, but no amount of money quieted the gnawing guilt that lived in his chest like a second heart. He had not held his sons in weeks. Work demanded everything. Enemies circled closer every day. That night, Vincent left the penthouse in an armored black SUV, heading to a meeting in the desert outside the city. The rival Moretti family had been pushing boundaries, skimming from his casinos, poaching his men, whispering betrayal. Vincent intended to end the whispers. He never saw the bomb. The explosion tore through the undercarriage with a roar that lit the night orange. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The SUV flipped 3 times before coming to rest on its roof in the sand. Vincent's world went black. 3 weeks later, in the private intensive care wing of University Medical Center, the machines kept up their steady, merciless rhythm. Vincent Russo lay motionless, tubes and wires, mapping a body that had once commanded fear with a single glance. Doctors spoke in low voices outside the door. Brain activity minimal, organs beginning to fail. The prognosis grew darker with each passing day. His consigliere Anthony Marcello, more brother than advisor, stood by the window overlooking the parking lot, jaw tight. Anthony had run the day-to-day operations since the bombing, fending off the Moretti wolves circling the weakened empire. The twins asked for their father every night. Luca's condition had worsened under the stress. Anthony had no answers to give them. Maria Thompson started her night shift at 7. She pushed her cleaning cart down the polished corridor of the private wing badge clipped to her faded scrubs. She was 26 now, but exhaustion had carved lines around her eyes that made her look older. Her hands were rough and cracked from bleach and cold water. She had lost weight. She could not afford to lose. Her uniform hung loose on her narrow frame. Room 1847 was always last. The nurses had told her the patient was a VIP, someone powerful, though they never said his name. Security guarded the door. Maria was only allowed in when they were sure he was stable. Tonight the guards nodded her through. The room was dim, lit only by the green glow of monitors. Vincent lay still as death, handsome, even in coma, strong features, dark hair threaded with early silver, fair skin pale against the white sheets. Maria began her routine, emptying trash, wiping surfaces, mopping the floor. She worked in silence at first, the way she always did. Then, as she had done every night for the past 2 weeks, she spoke. Softly, timidly, as if afraid the machines might hear and judge her. "I know you probably can't hear me," she whispered, adjusting the blanket with careful hands. "The nurses say there's no proof coma patients can. But my grandma always said the soul hears what the ears can't." She paused, glancing at the door to be sure no one was listening. "Lily learned a new word today. Star." She pointed at the sky on our walk home from daycare and said it clear as anything. "We don't see many stars where we live. Too many lights. Too much. Everything." Her voice trembled slightly. She swallowed. "I want to take her somewhere dark someday. Great Basin, maybe. I read about it once in a magazine someone left in the break room. Said the stars there look close enough to touch." She reached into her pocket and drew out a small, worn American flag pin. Her father's the only thing she had left of him. He had died in Afghanistan when she was 9. Every night she placed it gently on the patient's pillow, a tiny gesture of respect for a stranger who could not thank her. "I don't know who you are," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "but nobody should be alone like this. Not even someone important." Outside the door, Anthony listened for a moment, brow furrowed. He had noticed the cleaner talking before. Thought it harmless. Sweet even. He had no idea her quiet words were the only threads of light reaching through the endless gray fog trapping Vincent's mind. Maria finished her work, retrieved the pin, and slipped it back into her pocket. She rested her hand on Vincent's forehead for the briefest moment, cool, still lifeless. "God bless you," she murmured, the way her grandmother had taught her. Then she wheeled her cart away, unaware that in the vast emptiness of coma, Vincent Russo had begun ever so faintly to follow the sound of her voice. The machines beeped on. The city glittered beyond the windows, and in the darkness between two worlds, one of glittering power, one of crushing poverty, invisible threads began to weave. The clock above the nurse's station read 11 minutes past midnight when Maria Thompson returned to room 1847. October 2025 had turned colder than usual, and the wind off the desert sliced through her thin coat like a knife as she walked the last block from the bus stop. Her shoes, cheap canvas sneakers with soles worn to nothing, let in water from every puddle. By the time she reached the hospital's service entrance, her socks were soaked and her toes numb. She had not slept more than 3 hours in the last 48. Lily's fever had spiked again at dusk. Maria had spent the evening sponging her daughter's forehead with a washcloth dipped in the last of the tap water she had saved in a plastic jug. The pediatric clinic had turned them away earlier that week. Insurance lapsed. No appointment, come back Monday. She had begged. The receptionist had looked through her like she was glass. "We're full," the woman said. "Try the emergency room if it gets worse." Maria knew what that meant. Hours of waiting, questions she could not answer, bills she could never pay. Now pushing the heavy cleaning cart down the hushed corridor, Maria felt the familiar wave of dizziness roll through her. She gripped the handle until her knuckles whitened. She could not faint here. Not tonight. Not when double pay was on the line. Room 1847 was quiet except for the soft hiss of the ventilator and the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. The patient, still nameless to her, though the security guard sometimes whispered, "Mr." Russo lay exactly as she had left him the night before. Pale skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. Dark lashes resting against hollows that had not been there 3 weeks ago. A man who had once filled rooms with presence, now reduced to stillness. Maria closed the door behind her with a soft click. She began her work methodically, wiping the bedside table, straightening the already perfect sheets, collecting the single empty water cup. Every motion was careful, almost reverent. She did not know why she felt this way about a stranger. Perhaps because no one else did. When the surfaces were clean, she allowed herself to pause. She pulled the small wooden chair closer to the bed and sat folding her hands in her lap. Her fingers were red and chapped. The skin around her nails cracked and bleeding from too much bleach. She looked at the man's face for a long moment. "I'm back," she said quietly, voice so soft it barely carried over the machines. "I don't know if that matters to you. Probably not. But I'm here anyway." She swallowed. Her throat felt raw. "Lily's fever is still up. I gave her the last of the children's medicine tonight. It's the store brand kind, doesn't work as well, but it's all we had. She kept calling for me even in her sleep. Mama hot. Over and over. I sang to her until my voice gave out." Maria's eyes filled. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. "Not here, not in front of someone who could not see them. I keep thinking, if I could just get one good paycheck, one without deductions, one without the landlord taking half before I even cash it. Maybe I could buy real medicine. Maybe I could take her to a real doctor who doesn't look at us like we're wasting their time." She laughed once, a small broken sound. "I sound ridiculous. Talking to a man who probably has private doctors on speed dial, who probably never waited in line at a free clinic for 6 hours just to be told, 'Come back next month.'" She reached into her pocket and drew out the little American flag pin again. The metal was worn smooth from years of handling. She placed it gently on the pillow beside his ear. "My dad gave me this before he shipped out. Said it was supposed to remind me that good things still exist even when everything feels broken. I don't know if you believe in that kind of thing. I barely do anymore, but I keep it anyway." A long silence settled. The monitor beeped. Somewhere far down the hall an elevator dinged. Maria's voice dropped even lower. "I don't have anyone else to talk to. Not really. The neighbors keep to themselves. My coworkers. They're nice enough, but they have their own problems. And Lily, she's too little to understand why Mama cries sometimes when she thinks no one's watching." She leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees. "So I talk to you, because you're here. Because you can't tell me to stop. Because maybe, just maybe, someone needs to hear that the world still has people who show up even when it hurts." In the deepest reaches of Vincent Russo's mind, where darkness pressed in from every side, her voice arrived like a single candle flame in an endless cavern. He could not move, could not open his eyes, could not speak. But he could hear, and he heard everything. The tremor in her whisper when she spoke of her daughter. The exhaustion that weighted every word. The stubborn gentleness that refused to break even when the world tried to crush it. Vincent had spent his life surrounded by people who wanted something money favors, fear loyalty. No one had ever spoken to him without agenda. No one had ever simply been kind. The realization struck him like a second bomb. Guilt, old, familiar, corrosive, rose in his chest. He had built an empire on the broken backs of people like her. People who cleaned floors while he counted millions. People who waited in free clinics while his sons received care no one else could afford. People who shivered in trailer parks while he slept on Egyptian cotton. And now this woman, this fragile, exhausted woman, was sitting beside his dying body, offering him the only thing she had left: her voice, her stories, her small, stubborn hope. Something inside him tore. He wanted to reach for her, to tell her she did not have to carry this alone, to promise her the world if she would only keep talking. But his body betrayed him. Trapped. Useless. The violence of that helplessness was worse than any bullet he had ever taken. Across town, in the shadowed back room of a downtown bar, Anthony Marcello met with 2 of Vincent's lieutenants. The Moretti family had grown bolder. A shipment of cash had vanished from one of the Russo casinos 2 nights earlier. Whispers said the Morettis were testing the waters, seeing how far they could push before the sleeping lion woke. Anthony's face was stone. "We hit back tonight," he said quietly. "Quiet. Clean. No blood if we can help it." The men nodded. They understood. Vincent had always preferred precision to chaos, but Anthony's mind was elsewhere. He had seen the cleaner again tonight. Small, thin, moving like someone who expected the floor to drop out from under her at any moment. He had overheard her speaking to Vincent. Soft words, simple words. He did not know why it unsettled him so deeply. Maria stood to finish her shift. Her legs trembled from fatigue. She steadied herself against the bed rail for a moment, head spinning. "I have to go," she whispered. "Lily's sitter can only stay until 1. If I'm late again." She did not finish the sentence. Instead, she reached out, hesitant, almost afraid, and brushed a single strand of dark hair from Vincent's forehead. "Sleep well," she said. "Or whatever this is. Just don't give up, okay? Not yet. She retrieved the flag pin, tucked it away, and slipped out. The door closed behind her with a soft sigh. In the silence that followed, Vincent Russo felt the first faint stirrings of something he had not known in decades. Not fear, not anger, love, fierce, sudden, burning, for a woman whose name he did not even know, for a voice that had refused to let him disappear. The machines continued their indifferent rhythm. Outside, the city glittered cold, brilliant, merciless, and somewhere in the vast gray between life and death, a single thread of light grew brighter. Sunday morning arrived in Las Vegas like a thief, gray cold, and stealing what little warmth the night had left. October 2025 had decided to punish the city with an unseasonable chill, the kind that seeped into bones and stayed there. Maria Thompson woke to the sound of Lily coughing, a wet, rattling sound that made her heart seize. The trailer was colder than the night before. Frost had formed on the inside of the window she had tried to seal with newspaper and tape. The space heater had died 2 winters ago, and she had never replaced it. She could not afford to. Lily's small body burned under her palm. 103 degrees, maybe higher. Maria had no thermometer anymore. The last one had broken when the landlord slammed the door during their last argument over rent. She pressed her lips to Lily's forehead and tasted salt and fever. The child whimpered, eyes glassy, reaching for her with weak arms. "Mama, hot, hurt." Maria rocked her, slowly humming, the only lullaby she remembered from her own childhood, the one her foster mother had sung on the rare nights she was sober. The melody cracked in her throat. She had not eaten since yesterday's half sandwich from the hospital break room, stale bread and a single slice of processed cheese someone had left behind. Her stomach growled loud enough to startle Lily. She looked at the clock on her phone, 7:43. Her shift started at 9. Double pay today because of the flu outbreak among the cleaning staff. Double pay meant she could buy children's fever medicine, maybe even real food for once. Bread, milk, apples, things other mothers took for granted. But Lily could not be left alone. Mrs. Alvarez next door usually watched her for free on weekends, but she had gone to visit her grandchildren in Reno. The other neighbors worked Sundays or had children of their own. Daycare was closed. Maria had called every number in her contacts last night. Friends from the diner, old foster siblings, even the church lady who sometimes brought casseroles. No one answered. No one called back. She sat on the edge of the mattress, Lily curled against her chest, and felt the world shrink until it was only this one sick child, one terrified mother, one impossible choice. If she missed the shift, the hospital would dock her pay. Another late rent notice. Another threat of eviction. Winter was coming. She could not lose the trailer, not when it was the only roof they had. If she took Lily to the hospital, the risk was enormous. Bringing a feverish child into a building full of vulnerable patients. The germs. The judgment. The chance someone would call child services. Again, but what choice did she have? Maria dressed Lily in the warmest pajamas she owned, faded pink with tiny stars, the ones she had bought at a thrift store for $3 last Christmas. She packed the diaper bag with the last clean blanket, a sippy cup of water, a few saltine crackers, and the bottle of generic acetaminophen she had scraped together pennies for last month. Half full, not enough if the fever climbed higher. The bus ride downtown took 47 minutes and 2 transfers. Maria held Lily close, the child's head heavy on her shoulder. Every jolt of the bus sent fresh waves of dizziness through her. She had not slept properly in days. Her vision blurred at the edges. She pressed her cheek against Lily's burning hair and whispered promises she was not sure she could keep. "I'm going to fix this baby. Mama's going to fix everything." At the hospital, she used her employee badge to slip through the service entrance. The corridors smelled of bleach and coffee. She moved quickly, heart hammering, avoiding the main hallways where supervisors might see her. The small break room on the 5th floor, the one rarely used on weekends, was her only hope. It had a worn couch, a vending machine that sometimes dispensed free sodas if you hit it just right, and a door that locked from the inside. She settled Lily on the couch, surrounding her with the blanket and the stuffed bear missing one eye. Lily's breathing was shallow but steady. The fever medicine seemed to be holding for now. Maria kissed her daughter's forehead. "Mama will be right outside. I promise. Every 15 minutes. I swear." She closed the door softly and hurried to her cart. For the next 2 hours, she worked faster than she ever had, scrubbing sinks, emptying bins, mopping floors in record time. Every 15 minutes, she slipped back to the break room, checked Lily's temperature with the back of her hand, adjusted the blanket, whispered love. Each time the little girl was still sleeping, cheeks flushed but calm. Relief washed over Maria in small, fragile waves. At 12:37, she was wiping down a sink in room 1823, when her supervisor's voice cut through the hallway like a blade. Maria Thompson, She dropped the rag and ran. Janice stood outside the break room door, face pale, arms crossed tight. She's not here. Maria's world tilted. What? Your daughter? The couch is empty. Blankets on the floor, shoes gone. Maria shoved past her, slamming the door open. The room was empty, the blanket tangled, the one-eyed bear fallen, Lily's tiny sneakers missing. A sound tore from Maria's throat, half sob, half scream. Lily, she ran. Hallways blurred. She checked under beds, behind curtains, in supply closets. Nurses emerged from rooms, faces concerned. Security was called. The floor locked down. She's only 2, someone said. She can't have gone far. But the 5th floor was a maze. Corridors, branching doors, leading to stairwells, elevators, wings that stretched forever. And windows. God, the windows. Maria's mind conjured every nightmare. Lily wandering into traffic. Lily falling downstairs. Lily crying alone in some forgotten closet. Her legs shook. Her vision swam. She called Lily's name until her voice cracked raw. It was a young orderly who finally spoke the words that stopped her heart. Did anyone check the private wing? The door was propped open, earlier equipment delivery. The private wing, where Mr. Russo lay, where children were never ever allowed. Maria ran. Security guards followed. Janice too. She burst through the double doors into the hushed, expensive corridor, plush carpet, soft lighting, rooms that looked more like hotel suites than hospital beds. She checked the first room. Empty. The second. Empty. The third. Then she reached 1847. Through the observation window she saw it. Lily. Her tiny form climbing the chair beside the bed, small hands gripping the rail. The monitors beeped steadily. The machines hummed. Lily pulled herself up, determined, fever-flushed, innocent, and crawled onto the broad chest of the unconscious man. She settled there, head resting against his shoulder, arms wrapping around him the way she wrapped around Maria during thunderstorms. Lily knew Maria slapped her palm against the access panel. The door hissed open. But she was too late. Lily had already curled tight, small chest rising and falling in rhythm with the sleeping man beneath her. Security pushed forward. Get her off him, liability, Maria froze. Because something was different. The man's face, no longer slack and empty, had changed. A faint furrow between his brows. His mouth moved just the smallest fraction. Wait, Maria whispered, then louder. Wait, look at him. In the deepest chamber of Vincent Russo's trapped mind, the darkness had been absolute. Until now, a small warm weight. A tiny heartbeat against his own, a child's trusting arms, and beneath it all, that voice, soft, timid, persistent, still echoing. He felt it. Not just sound. Feeling. Life. Guilt and remorse roared through him sharper than any blade. He had spent decades building walls of power and fear, and now a child, innocent, feverish, lost, had breached them without effort. He wanted to weep. He wanted to hold her. He wanted to beg forgiveness from every person his empire had ever crushed. Most of all, he wanted to wake. For her. For the woman whose voice had refused to let him die. For the love that had ignited in the void, sudden, fierce, consuming, and now burned brighter than any neon on the strip. The monitors spiked. Heart rate climbing. Brainwaves stirring. And in the corridor outside, Maria Thompson stood trembling, tears streaming, watching a miracle she could not comprehend begin to unfold. The door hissed open, and Maria stumbled through legs buckling beneath her. The security guard surged forward, boots heavy on the thick carpet, hands already outstretched toward the small form curled on Vincent Russo's chest. Maria's scream was raw animal. Lily, no, please don't touch her. One guard hesitated, arm frozen mid-reach. The other looked to Janice, who stood pale in the doorway, radio crackling uselessly against her hip. The room seemed to hold its breath. Lily did not stir. The toddler's dark curls spilled across the crisp white hospital gown. Her small arms encircled what she could reach of Vincent's shoulders the way she clung to Maria during nightmares. Her breathing was slow, even fever-flushed cheeks pressed to cool skin. She looked peaceful, impossibly peaceful in a place designed for machines and despair. Maria's knees gave way. She dropped to the floor beside the bed, one hand reaching instinctively toward her daughter. Her fingers trembled inches from Lily's back. She did not dare touch. Not yet. Not when everything felt balanced on the edge of ruin. Look at the monitors, Janice whispered. Maria lifted her eyes. The heart rate line, flat and steady for weeks, had begun to climb slowly at first, then with sudden purpose. Numbers flickered upward. The brainwave display, once a thin, nearly invisible thread, showed jagged peaks where only silence had been before. Oxygen saturation rose. Blood pressure steadied. A sound escaped Maria, half sob, half disbelieving laugh. The lead nurse on duty, a woman named Cheryl who had worked the private wing for 15 years, pushed past the guards. She stared at the screens, then at the child, then back at the screens. "This isn't possible," she murmured. But the numbers did not lie. Vincent Russo's fingers twitched. The smallest movement barely perceptible, but it sent a ripple through the room. Maria saw it. Her breath caught. She pressed both hands to her mouth, tears spilling freely now. Inside the gray prison of his mind, Vincent felt the shift like an earthquake. The small, warm weight on his chest was no longer just sensation. It was anchor. It was heartbeat. It was life calling him back. He had spent 3 weeks drowning in nothingness, endless fog, no up, no down, no mercy. Only her voice had pierced it, soft, timid, persistent. Stories of a little girl learning words, dreams of stars, a flag pin placed with reverence beside his ear, kindness offered without expectation, without agenda. And now this child, her child, had found him. Guilt crashed through him, violent and merciless. He had ordered men beaten for less than a missed payment. He had watched families lose homes because his casinos took their last dollars. He had built walls of money and fear so high no one could reach him. Yet here was a 2-year-old girl, feverish and lost, climbing onto the chest of a monster and falling asleep as if he were safe, as if he were worthy. Remorse tore at him sharp, unrelenting. He wanted to scream, to beg forgiveness, to promise he would burn every dirty dollar if only he could wake and protect them. Love, fierce, sudden, consuming, surged alongside the guilt. Not gratitude, not obligation. Love. For the woman who had spoken to him when no one else would. For the child who trusted when the world had given her no reason to. He fought then, fought harder than he had ever fought in boardrooms or back alleys. He clawed toward the surface, toward light, toward them. The monitors screamed in alarm spikes so sharp the nurses jumped. Cheryl stepped forward, voice shaking. "We need Dr. Chin. Now." Maria remained on her knees, eyes locked on Lily. Her body trembled with cold exhaustion, terror. She had not eaten properly in days. Sleep had been stolen in fragments. The wind had howled through her trailer for weeks, stealing warmth she could not replace. And now this her daughter on the chest of a man she barely knew, a man whose name she had only heard in frightened whispers. She felt dizzy, numb. The room spun. "What if they take her?" she whispered, to no one. "What if they call the authorities? What if they say I'm unfit?" The thought sliced deeper than any knife. She had failed Lily in so many ways. Already cold nights, empty cupboards, endless apologies. If they took her daughter? Maria's vision darkened at the edges. She swayed. Janice caught her elbow. "Maria, breathe. Sit." Maria shook her head. "I can't, I have to." Dr. Patricia Chin arrived, running white coat, flapping stethoscope swinging. She stopped short at the sight Toddler, asleep on the patient monitors, alive with activity that had not existed hours before. She stared. Then she moved professional precise, but her hands trembled slightly as she checked vitals. "Brain activity is surging," she said quietly. "REM patterns. He's dreaming. He hasn't shown REM since admission." The room filled with more staff neurologists paged from home residents peering through the door. Whispers spread like wildfire down the corridor. Maria watched it all, through a haze of shock and fear. Lily stirred once, small hand curling tighter into Vincent's gown. Vincent's eyelids fluttered. Maria gasped. The flutter stopped. But it had happened. Cheryl knelt beside Maria. "We should move the child." "It's not safe." "No," Dr. Chin said sharply. Then softer. "Not yet. Look at the trends. Whatever this is, it's working." Maria looked up at the doctor, eyes wide, pleading. "She's just a baby. She's sick." "She didn't mean I know," Dr. Chin said gently. "We're not blaming anyone. But we need to understand what's happening." Maria nodded numbly. She reached out slowly, carefully, and rested her palm on Lily's back. The rise and fall of her daughter's breathing synced with the man beneath her. Maria felt it then, the thread. Invisible. Fragile. But real. In the depths of Vincent's mind, the thread pulled taut. He saw her not with eyes, but with something deeper. The thin woman with cracked hands and haunted eyes. The woman who had placed a flag pin beside him every night like a prayer. The woman who had spoken of stars when her own world was dark. Suspicion had no place here. Only certainty. He loved her. Fiercely. Instantly. With a force that shattered the last of his defenses. He would wake. He would protect them. He would spend every remaining breath undoing the damage he had done. The monitors spiked again, higher this time. Dr. Chin's eyes widened. "Call the family," she said. "And get more blankets. The child's fever is breaking." Maria looked down. Lily's cheeks had cooled. Her breathing eased. Tears fell freely now, silent, unstoppable. Maria leaned forward and pressed her forehead to the edge of the bed, shoulders shaking. "Thank you," she whispered to Lily, to the man beneath her, to whatever force had allowed this impossible moment. In the quiet that followed, while machines sang and staff whispered, and the city glittered indifferently beyond the windows, 3 lives hung suspended. A billionaire mafia boss trapped between death and awakening. A destitute mother broken and brave. A toddler who had wandered into legend. And the thread between them, thin, trembling, unbreakable, grew brighter still. The room had become a hushed cathedral of machines and held breath. Afternoon light slanted through the half-closed blinds, striping the bed in golden shadow. Lily still slept small, chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm with the man beneath her. The monitors no longer screamed. They sang steady, insistent, alive. Dr. Chin stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded, eyes flicking between screens and the unlikely pair. Cheryl adjusted an IV line with trembling fingers. Janice hovered near the door, radio silent in her hand. Maria knelt where she had fallen, one palm flat against the cool tile, the other hovering near Lily's back as though touching might shatter the fragile spell. Vincent Russo's eyelids fluttered again, longer this time. A low, rasping sound escaped his throat. Maria's head snapped up. His fingers, long, elegant, once used to signing contracts worth empires, curled weakly against the sheet. Then his eyes opened. Dark, unfocused at first, they searched the ceiling, the walls, the faces blurred above him. They found Lily curled trustingly on his chest, and something cracked open inside him. A single tear slipped from the corner of his eye, tracing a slow path down his temple into the pillow. Maria saw it. She made a small, wounded sound. Vincent's gaze shifted, slow, painful, and landed on her. The woman whose voice had been his only tether. Thin, exhausted, eyes wide with terror and wonder, hands cracked and red, uniform hanging loose on a frame that spoke of too many skipped meals, too many nights, shivering under thin blankets, while the desert wind howled through trailer seams. Recognition hit him like a second explosion. Maria. He did not know her name yet, but he knew her soul. The love that had ignited in darkness roared to full flame, passionate, protective, burning away every wall he had ever built. It was not gentle. It was violent in its certainty. He wanted to rise to shield her, to give her everything his empire could buy, and more. He wanted to beg her forgiveness for every life his world had touched and broken. Guilt followed the love like a shadow, black, suffocating. He had no right to this feeling. He was a man who had ordered silence bought with fear, and she was the purest thing he had ever encountered. His lips moved. No sound at first. Then a whisper rough from weeks of disuse. "The little one." Maria leaned closer, tears streaming unchecked. "She's okay," she breathed. "She's sleeping." Her fever broke. Vincent's eyes never left her face. "You..." He swallowed, throat working painfully. "You talked to me." Maria froze. Her voice came out small, timid, almost apologetic. I didn't know if you could hear. The doctor said probably not. I couldn't leave you alone." Another tear escaped him. In the deepest part of his heart, remorse clawed deeper. She had sat beside a stranger night after night when her own child was burning with fever, when her home was one missed paycheck from the street, when hunger was a constant companion. She had given him kindness she could barely afford to give herself. He wanted to speak, to tell her she had saved him, to promise her the stars she dreamed of for her daughter, but his body was weak, his voice a thread. "Name," he managed. Maria blinked, confused. "Maria," she whispered. "Maria Thompson, and this is Lily." "Maria." He tested the name like a prayer. The sound of it in his mouth felt sacred. Lily stirred, then small hand flexing against his gown. She lifted her head, rubbed sleepy eyes, and looked straight into Vincent's face. For a long moment, toddler and man regarded each other. Then Lily smiled small, trusting, unafraid. "Hi," she said softly. Vincent's chest heaved. A sob broke from him, quiet, broken. Maria reached out instinctively, resting her hand on his arm, the first real touch between them. His skin was cool, hers warm from holding Lily. The contact sent a jolt through him, electric grounding. Outside the room, Anthony Marcello arrived, summoned by urgent page. He pushed through the cluster of staff and froze in the doorway. His boss, his brother in all but blood, was awake and crying. Anthony's throat closed. He had seen Vincent take bullets without flinching, seen him stare down rivals without blinking. Now tears. Anthony stepped inside quietly. Vincent's gaze found him. "Anthony." The word was hoarse but clear. Anthony moved to the bedside, eyes flicking to the child, to Maria, to the monitors that told an impossible story. "You're back," Anthony said, voice thick. Vincent looked down at Lily, then at Maria. "Because of them." Maria shook her head quickly. "No, I didn't do anything. It was Lily. She just climbed up. I'm so sorry. I never should have." Vincent's hand, trembling, weak, lifted from the sheet. He covered hers where it rested on his arm. The touch was feather-light, but it anchored her. "Don't," he rasped. "Don't apologize. You saved me." Maria stared at their joined hands, her rough work-worn fingers against his manicured ones. The disparity struck her like a blow. She pulled back instinctively. "I'm nobody," she whispered. "I clean floors. I can't even keep my own child warm." Vincent's grip tightened just enough to hold her there. "You are everything," he said. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere he had never allowed himself to look. Maria's breath hitched. She felt dizzy again, numbness creeping up her arms, the room tilting. This man, wealthy beyond imagining, powerful enough to own half the city, looked at her as though she were the miracle. She had spent years invisible. Now she was seen. The shock of it was violent. Tears spilled faster. "I don't understand," she said, voice breaking. "Why me? Why would you?" Vincent's eyes burned into hers. "Because you spoke to me when the world had already buried me. Because your daughter trusted me when I have spent my life making sure no one ever did." His voice cracked. "Because in 3 weeks of darkness, you were the only light." Maria swayed. Cheryl caught her shoulders gently. "Easy, honey. Sit." Maria sank into the chair, still holding Vincent's hand as though letting go would unravel everything. Lily patted Vincent's cheek with a small hand. "Better?" she asked solemnly. Vincent managed the ghost of a smile. "Much better, little one." Dr. Chin cleared her throat. "We need to run tests. Mr. Russo, Vincent, you've been in a coma for 3 weeks. Your body needs time." Vincent nodded weakly, but his eyes never left Maria. "Stay," he said. It was not a command. It was a plea. Maria looked at Lily, then at him. I have to work. My shift." Janice stepped forward. "Forget the shift. You're not going anywhere until we figure this out." Maria's eyes filled again. She had expected punishment, termination, judgment. Instead, mercy. The unfairness of it, of kindness, when she had expected cruelty, tore at her. Vincent watched the play of emotions across her face. He knew that look. He had seen it on the faces of people his world had crushed. Remorse surged again, hot, violent. He would fix this. He would protect them. He would dismantle anything that threatened them, even if it meant dismantling himself. Anthony leaned close. "The Morettis are moving," he murmured. "They think you're still out. They're testing the edges." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Let them test," he whispered. "They'll learn soon enough." His gaze returned to Maria. She was watching him, fearful, curious, guarded. He squeezed her hand once gently. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said. "Or to her." Maria searched his face. She saw power there, wealth, danger. But she also saw something else. A man breaking open. A man who had been alone longer than she had. She nodded, small, trembling. "Okay," she whispered. In that quiet moment, while machines hummed and staff moved in soft confusion, the thread between them thickened. Love, fierce and unasked for, burned brighter. Guilt and hope warred in Vincent's chest. Fear and wonder warred in Maria's. And Lily slept on innocent bridge between 2 shattered worlds. Outside, the city glittered on cold, brilliant waiting. But inside room 1847, something impossible had begun. The private wing had transformed overnight into a fortress of quiet urgency. Security doubled at every entrance. Reporters hovered in the lobby like vultures drawn by leaked whispers of a miracle awakening. Inside room 1847, the air felt thick with unspoken questions. Vincent Russo sat propped against pillows for the first time in weeks. IV lines still taped to the backs of his hands, monitors beeping. A steady reminder that his body had not yet caught up to his will. His face remained pale, but his eyes, sharp, dark, alive, tracked every movement in the room. Maria sat in the wooden chair beside the bed, Lily asleep in her lap. The toddler's fever had broken completely. Her small face was peaceful now, flushed only from warmth. Maria's own hands shook faintly as she stroked Lily's curls. She had not left the room since the awakening. Janice had brought her a tray of hospital food, real food, not scraps, but Maria could barely swallow. Her stomach, shrunken from too many empty days, rebelled at the richness of it. Vincent watched her. Every detail carved itself into him, the way her shoulders hunched as though expecting a blow, the faint tremor in her fingers, the hollows beneath her cheekbones that spoke of months, years of going without. He had penthouses with marble floors and private chefs. She had a trailer with frost on the inside of the windows. The contrast was a blade twisting in his chest. Remorse had become a living thing inside him, gnawing, relentless. He had spent decades convincing himself the empire was necessary, that power protected what mattered. Now he saw clearly it had only ever protected him. Anthony stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. He carried a slim tablet and a file folder. His face was grim. Moretti's people are moving faster than we thought, he said quietly. They hit one of our warehouses on the east side last night. No shots fired, just a message. They think you're still under. They're testing how much they can carve before you wake up and bite back. Vincent's jaw tightened. Let them carve, he said, voice still rough but steady. They'll choke on what they take. Anthony glanced at Maria, then back at Vincent. We need to talk strategy. Privately. Vincent's gaze flicked to Maria. She looked up, eyes wide. I can go, she said quickly, voice soft and polite, the way she always spoke to people who carried authority. I'll take Lily to the break room. No, Vincent said firmly. Stay. He looked at Anthony. Speak. Anthony hesitated only a second. They know about her, he said, nodding toward Maria. Word got out. A cleaner and her kid brought you back from the dead. The story's spreading. Moretti sees weakness. They'll use it. Maria's arms tightened around Lily. Vincent felt ice slide down his spine. His love for her, for them, had been pure in the darkness. Now it carried danger. He reached out, covering Maria's hand where it rested on Lily's back. You're safe, he said. I swear it. Maria searched his face, fearful, confused, a flicker of something like hope warring with disbelief. How can you promise that, she whispered. You don't even know me. I know enough. The words came out fierce. Anthony cleared his throat. There's more. I had your usual channels look into her background. Routine protection protocol. Vincent's eyes narrowed, and Anthony opened the folder. She's been helping one of ours. Tommy Vega, low-level runner, got clipped in a skirmish 2 months back, Moretti drive-by. He's been in recovery on the 3rd floor. No insurance, no family. Hospital was going to discharge him to the street. Vincent waited. Anthony continued. Maria's been sneaking him trays from the staff kitchen. Bandages, pain meds when the nurses weren't looking. She sat with him some nights. Talked to him the way she talked to you. Told him not to give up. Maria's face drained of color. She looked down at Lily, then back at the 2 men. I didn't know he was one of yours, she said, voice trembling. He was just alone, scared. I couldn't walk past him every night and pretend I didn't see. Vincent stared at her. The revelation struck like a physical blow. Tommy Vega, barely 21, reckless, loyal, had been bleeding out in an alley because of orders Vincent had given. And this woman who could not afford medicine for her own child, had fed him, comforted him, treated him like a person, when Vincent's world had treated him like disposable muscle. The guilt was no longer gnawing. It was devouring. He felt sick with it. Maria mistook his silence for anger. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears spilling. I know I shouldn't have. I broke rules. Vincent lifted his hand slowly, painfully, and cupped her cheek. The touch was gentle, reverent. Don't apologize, he said, voice cracking. You did what I never had the courage to do. Maria froze under his palm. His thumb brushed away a tear. You showed mercy to a man my orders put in that bed. You showed mercy to me when I deserved none. Do you understand what that means? She shook her head, small, confused. Vincent's voice dropped to a whisper. It means I've spent my life building walls. You walked through them without even trying. Anthony shifted uncomfortably. Vincent ignored him. His eyes never left Maria's. I don't deserve you, he said, but I will protect you, both of you, with everything I have. Maria's breath hitched. She felt dizzy again, numbness creeping up her arms, the room tilting. This man, wealthy enough to buy buildings, powerful enough to command silence, looked at her as though she were the one with the power. She had spent years ashamed of her cracked hands, her thin frame, her patched clothes. Now he touched her like she was precious. The shock was violent. Her heart tore, fear and longing colliding. I don't belong here, she whispered. I'm nobody. I clean floors. I can't even keep the lights on. Vincent's grip tightened just enough to ground her. You belong wherever I am, he said, because I'm not letting you go back to that cold trailer. Not ever. Maria's tears fell faster. She looked down at Lily, then back at him. Why, she asked, voice breaking. Why me? Vincent's eyes burned. Because you reminded me there's something worth saving. Not money. Not power. People. You. Her. He looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. I have sons, he said quietly. Luca and Matteo. 3 years old. Luca's sick chronic. I've thrown money at it until the doctors ran out of treatments. But I've never held them the way your daughter holds on to you. I've never been present. His voice cracked. I almost died without ever being their father. Because of my choices. My world. Maria listened, silent, trembling. Vincent continued. You talked to me about stars when your own sky was dark. You helped a stranger when you could barely help yourself. That kind of heart. I've never known it. Maria's hand rose hesitant and covered his where it rested on her cheek. I'm scared, she admitted. I know, he said. But you're not alone anymore. Anthony cleared his throat again. Boss, we need to move on the Morettus. Tonight. Before they move on us. Vincent nodded once. Quietly, he said. No blood if it can be avoided. But make it clear anyone who comes near them. He nodded toward Maria, and Lily answers to me. Anthony left without another word. Maria looked at Vincent, eyes wide, guarded, curious despite the fear. You're dangerous, she said softly. Vincent did not flinch. Yes, he admitted. But not to you. Never to you. A long silence settled. Maria's voice came out small. I don't know how to trust this. Vincent turned his hand palm up and laced his fingers through hers. Then let me show you, he said. Outside the window, the Las Vegas skyline glittered cold, brilliant, merciless. But inside the room, 2 hands, one rough from bleach and cold water, one manicured and powerful, held tight. And the thread between them, forged in darkness, tested in light, grew stronger still. The hospital room had grown quieter as evening settled over Las Vegas. October 2025 painted the sky outside the window in bruised purples and fading golds. Inside, the machines had softened their chorus. Vincent's vitals had stabilized enough for the nurses to dim the overhead lights. A single lamp beside the bed cast warm circles across the sheets. Vincent sat higher now, pillows propped behind him, though every movement still cost effort. His sons had been brought to him an hour earlier. Luca and Matteo, 3 years old, identical, except for the thin scar across Luca's chest, where surgeons had once fought to keep his heart beating. The boys had stared at their father with wide, uncertain eyes, then rushed forward when Anthony gently nudged them. They had climbed onto the bed with clumsy care, pressing small faces against Vincent's chest, as though afraid he might vanish again. Vincent had held them carefully, reverently, arms trembling not only from weakness but from the sheer weight of what he had almost lost. He had whispered apologies into their dark hair, promises he intended to keep this time. Luca had touched the IV line with curious fingers. Matteo had simply curled against his father's side and fallen asleep almost instantly. Vincent had not let go until the nanny returned to take them home. Now the boys were gone and the room felt larger, emptier. Maria remained. She sat in the same wooden chair, Lily dozing in her arms again. The child had refused to leave Vincent's side until exhaustion claimed her. Maria looked smaller than ever in the lamplight. Thin shoulders, hunched uniform wrinkled from 24 hours without changing, dark circles carved deep beneath her eyes. She had not eaten since the hospital tray at noon. The food had sat untouched until a nurse quietly removed it. Vincent watched her. The sight of her exhausted, fragile, still here despite everything twisted something deep inside him. Love burned hotter with every passing hour, fierce and protective, yet it warred constantly with the remorse that refused to loosen its grip. He had wealth enough to buy silence from entire city blocks, power enough to make problems disappear. Yet he could not erase the nights she had spent shivering in a trailer with frost on the walls, or the days she had gone hungry so Lily could eat. He reached out slowly and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Maria startled slightly, then met his eyes. You should rest, she said softly, voice timid and polite, the way she always spoke when fear and exhaustion made her small. You've been through so much. So have you, he replied. She looked down at Lily. I'm used to it. The words were quiet, but they cut him deeper than any rival's blade ever had. Vincent's hand slid to hers fingers, threading through hers again. Her skin was cold, his warm from the blankets and the slow return of strength. You're not going back to that trailer, he said. Not a question, a vow. Maria's breath caught. I don't know how to accept that, she whispered. It feels wrong, like I'm taking something I didn't earn. Vincent's thumb traced slow circles across her knuckles. You earned it the night you first spoke to me. Every night after. Every time you placed that flag pin beside me like it meant something. Maria's eyes filled. My dad gave me that pin, she said, voice trembling. Before he left for his last tour. He said it was supposed to remind me that good still existed. I stopped believing him a long time ago. Until you looked at me like I mattered. Vincent's throat closed. He had spent years convincing himself he was beyond redemption. A man who ruled shadows could not step into light without burning. Yet here was this woman malnourished, sleep-deprived, carrying the weight of a world that had never once been kind to her, offering him absolution he had never dared ask for. The conflict inside him was violent. He wanted to pull her close, shield her from every cold wind that had ever touched her. He wanted to give her the life she deserved, warmth, safety stars for Lily to touch. But the man he had been still whispered that he would taint her, that his world would only bring more danger. He fought that voice. fought it with everything he had left. "I'm not a good man," he said quietly. "I've done things, ordered things, that can never be undone, but I swear to you, Maria, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be better. For you, for Lily, for my boys." Maria looked up at him, eyes wide, shimmering. "You don't have to. I do," he interrupted gently. "Because you showed me what better looks like." A soft knock interrupted them. Anthony entered, expression tight. "Boss, we need to talk. Now." Vincent nodded. Maria started to rise. "Stay," Vincent said again. "Please." She hesitated, then settled back, clutching Lily closer. Anthony glanced at her, then spoke low. "The Morettis sent another message. They hit the valet stand at the Eclipse an hour ago. No shots, just slashed tires, broken windows, a note left on the windshield of your personal car. The lion sleeps. The wolves feast." Vincent's jaw clenched. Maria's face paled. Anthony continued. "They're circling closer. They know about the woman and the child. They think it's leverage." Vincent's hand tightened around Maria's. "They touch her, they die," he said flatly. Maria's breath hitched. Vincent turned to her. "I won't let them near you," he promised. "I'm ending this. Tonight." Anthony nodded once and left. Maria looked at Vincent, fear, confusion, a flicker of awe. "You're going out there," she whispered. "You can barely sit up." "I have people," he said. "But I need to be seen. They need to know the lion isn't sleeping anymore." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you hurt again," she said, voice breaking. "Not because of me." Vincent lifted her hand to his lips, gentle, reverent. "Because of you," he murmured against her skin. "I'm alive at all." He held her gaze. "I'm going to fix this. Then I'm coming back. And when I do, we're leaving this place together. You, me, Lily, Luca, Matteo. No more cold nights. No more empty cupboards. No more fear." Maria's tears fell silently. She leaned forward, hesitant, and rested her forehead against his shoulder. Vincent wrapped his arm around her, weak but steady. They stayed like that for a long moment, two broken people finding something whole in each other. Later, when the nurses had dimmed the lights further and Maria had finally allowed herself to lean back in the chair with Lily, Vincent watched them sleep. Love burned brighter than ever, fierce, consuming, protective. But so did the guilt. He had brought danger to her door. He would end it. Anthony returned just after midnight. Vincent had already changed into street clothes, simple black sweater and slacks brought from his penthouse. He moved slowly, but determination made him steady. Maria woke as he stood. She looked up, eyes wide with fear. Vincent crossed to her, knelt, despite the pain, and cupped her face in both hands. "I'll be back before dawn," he said. "I promise." Maria's voice trembled. "Be careful." Vincent pressed his forehead to hers. "For you," he whispered always. He kissed her forehead, soft, lingering, then stood. Anthony waited at the door. Vincent paused, looked back at Maria one last time. "You're my reason now," he said quietly. "Both of you." Maria nodded, tears falling, unable to speak. Vincent left the room. The corridor stretched long and quiet. But outside, in the glittering, merciless city, the wolves waited. And the lion, scarred, weakened, but awake, was coming for them. Dawn broke over Las Vegas in thin, pale streaks, the kind of light that made the neon signs look tired and mortal. Vincent returned to the hospital just before 6 in the morning, moving slower than he had the night before, a fresh bruise blooming along his left cheekbone. No stitches, no blood, just the quiet cost of reminding the Morettis that the lion still had teeth. Anthony had handled most of it, 3 tense meetings in shadowed parking garages, one brief standoff outside a downtown warehouse where words were exchanged like loaded dice. No shots fired, no bodies left behind. Only promises made under street lamp glow the Morettis would pull back from the edges. For now, Vincent had insisted on being there for the final conversation, leaning against the hood of an unmarked SUV while Anthony spoke the terms. The rival capo had looked at the bruise on Vincent's face and understood. The lion was awake. Vincent entered room 1847 quietly. Maria was awake, sitting beside the bed with Lily still asleep in her arms. She had not moved from the chair all night. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face drawn tight with worry. When she saw him, she stood so quickly the room tilted. She caught the bed rail to steady herself. "You're hurt," she whispered. Vincent crossed to her in 3 careful steps. "Just a reminder," he said softly. "Nothing more." He reached out and brushed his knuckles gently along her cheek. Her skin felt cold. She had not slept. He could see the exhaustion etched into every line of her thin frame, trembling faintly, shoulders curved inward as though bracing for the next blow the world might deliver. Maria's eyes searched his face. "Is it over?" she asked, voice small and timid. "For now," he answered. They won't come near you again. Maria exhaled a shaky, disbelieving sound, and then her knees buckled. Vincent caught her, guiding her back to the chair, kneeling in front of her so their eyes were level. I was so scared, she confessed, tears spilling over. I kept thinking, if something happened to you because of me? Vincent cupped her face in both hands. Nothing happened because of you, he said fiercely. Everything good that's happened in the last 24 hours happened because of you. Maria shook her head. I'm nobody, she whispered again, the words automatic, worn smooth from years of repetition. I clean floors. I can't even pay rent on time. I let my child get sick because I couldn't afford a doctor. Vincent silenced her with a gentle thumb across her lips. You are everything, he said. And I'm going to prove it. He stood slowly, painfully, and moved to the window. The city sprawled below, glittering even in daylight, a monument to excess and illusion. I've spent my life collecting things, he said quietly. Buildings, money, power. I thought it made me untouchable. I was wrong. He turned back to her. I'm stepping away from the parts of my world that hurt people. The front stay, casinos, construction, the legitimate businesses. They'll fund something better. Something real. Maria looked up at him, confused, guarded a flicker of hope warring with disbelief. What do you mean? She asked softly. Vincent crossed back to her, knelt again. I'm starting a foundation, he said. The Lily and Stars Foundation, named for your daughter and the dreams you told me about every night. It will provide emergency childcare for hospital workers, medical funds for families like yours, trauma support for people caught in violence they didn't choose, scholarships, housing assistance, real help, not handouts but pathways out. Maria's breath caught. You're naming it after Lily? Vincent nodded. And you'll run it with me, he continued. Not as charity, as partners, equal voice, equal say. You know what people actually need. I've only ever known how to buy silence. Maria stared at him, eyes wide, shimmering. I'm not qualified, she whispered. I didn't finish college. I barely finished high school. You lived it, Vincent interrupted gently. Every cold night, every skipped meal, every time the system looked through you like you weren't there. That's qualification enough. Tears spilled down Maria's cheeks. She looked down at Lily, still sleeping peacefully, then back at Vincent. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice breaking. You could just go back to your life. Your penthouse, your sons. You don't have to. Vincent took her hands in his. Because I almost died without ever knowing what mattered, he said. And the first thing I knew when I woke up was you. Your voice. Your kindness. Your daughter trusting me when I didn't deserve it. I can't go back to the man I was. Not after that. Maria's shoulders shook. I'm scared, she admitted again. What if I fail? What if I ruin it? Vincent lifted her chin gently. Then we fail together, he said, and we try again. But you won't be alone. Not anymore. A long silence, settled quiet, condensed heavy with possibility. Maria looked around the room at the monitors, the IV stand, the luxury that money could buy even in illness. Then she looked at Vincent, at the bruise on his cheek, the determination in his eyes, the way he knelt before her like she was the one with power. I've never had anyone fight for me, she whispered. Not like this. Vincent's throat worked. I'll fight for you every day, he promised. For the rest of my life. Maria leaned forward, hesitant, and rested her forehead against his. Vincent wrapped his arms around her and Lily, careful of the child, careful of his own healing body. They stayed like that, three small figures in a vast, glittering city, while the sun climbed higher. Later, when the doctors came to check Vincent's progress, Maria stepped aside, still holding Lily. She watched from the corner as specialists murmured, approvals adjusted. Medications spoke of remarkable recovery. Vincent answered their questions, but his eyes kept finding Maria. When the room cleared again, he beckoned her closer. There's one more thing, he said quietly. Maria approached, wary, curious. Vincent reached into the pocket of his sweater and drew out a small velvet box. Maria froze. He opened it. Inside lay a simple platinum band with a single star-shaped diamond, small, elegant, catching the light like a captured night sky. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. Vincent took her left hand gently. I don't want to rush you, he said, but I know what I want. I want you. I want Lily. I want our boys to grow up together. I want to build something real with you, not just a foundation, but a family. Tears streamed down Maria's face. I don't know how to be this, she whispered. Someone who belongs in your world. Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger. Perfect fit, as though it had waited for her all along. You already belong, he said. You've belonged since the first night you spoke to me. Maria stared at the ring, simple, beautiful, impossibly real. She looked up at him. Yes, she whispered. Vincent exhaled a sound of pure relief and pulled her into his arms. They held each other quiet, trembling, while Lily slept between them. Outside, the city continued its endless spin, bright, cold, unforgiving. But inside that room, two worlds had finally touched, and the thread between them, forged in darkness, tested in fire, had become unbreakable. 3 days after Vincent's quiet return from the desert meeting, the doctors cleared him for discharge. The private wing had become too small for the life now stretching before them. Maria had watched the process in stunned silence, paperwork signed in Vincent's steady hand, nurses offering soft smiles instead of suspicion, a sleek black SUV waiting at the service entrance instead of a city bus. She had clutched Lily tighter with every step down the corridor, as though the polished floors might vanish beneath her feet and drop her back into the windswept trailer park. Vincent had insisted they leave together. No separate cars, no separate lives. The drive north took 3 hours. Vincent sat in the back seat beside Maria Lily, asleep between them, in a new car seat that had appeared as if by magic, soft gray fabric safety tags still attached. Maria kept one hand on the child's small chest, the other resting in Vincent's palm. She had not spoken much since leaving the hospital. Words felt too fragile for what was happening. The landscape changed slowly, neon and concrete giving way to scrub desert, then rolling hills, then the dark silhouette of mountains against a deepening sky. Vincent had chosen Great Basin National Park, deliberately. He had remembered every word Maria had whispered to him during those long coma nights, dreams of dark skies, real stars, a place where the Milky Way looked close enough to touch. He had made calls from his hospital bed, permits, a private cabin, a guide who knew the darkest viewing spots. Money moved mountains quietly when it wanted to. They arrived after sunset. The air was crisp, pine-scented, carrying no echo of exhaust or desperation. Vincent helped Maria from the car, steadying her when her legs wobbled from exhaustion and the surreal weight of the moment. Lily woke as the cool air touched her face, eyes wide with wonder. Vincent spread thick wool blankets on a flat clearing near the cabin. A small telescope stood ready, borrowed from an observatory contact, along with thermoses of hot chocolate and a basket of sandwiches, fruit cookies, simple food but abundant. Maria stared at it as though it might disappear. They lay back on the blankets, Lily between them. The child pointed upward immediately. Stars, she cried, small, finger-tracing arcs across the sky. Maria's breath caught. There were so many. Not the faint pinpricks she had glimpsed through city haze, but thousands, tens of thousands spilling across the black like spilled sugar. The Milky Way arched overhead, a luminous river she had only ever seen in magazine photographs. She felt dizzy, not from hunger this time, from awe. From the sudden violent contrast between every cold, wind-bitten night she had endured and this moment of impossible beauty. Vincent watched her face in the starlight. He saw the tears gather in her eyes, the way her lips parted in silent wonder, the tremor in her hands as she reached toward the sky, as though she could gather the light. Love surged through him again, fierce, protective, aching. He had given her this one small gift, but it felt like too little against the years she had suffered alone. Remorse clawed at him anew. While she had counted pennies for fever medicine, he had spent fortunes on private jets and silence. While she had sung lullabies to keep Lily warm, he had taught his sons fear instead of trust. He reached for her hand. Maria turned to him, eyes shining, voice soft and trembling. "I've never seen anything like this," she whispered. It's like the sky opened up." Vincent squeezed her fingers. "You told me about it," he said quietly. "Every night. You kept me alive with those dreams. Now I get to give one back." Lily sat up, suddenly pointing again. "Luna," she announced, delighted. Maria laughed through tears. "Yes, baby, Luna. And so many more." Vincent pulled them both closer, Lily against his chest, Maria tucked under his arm. The child traced constellations with her finger, naming every light Luna in joyful certainty. Maria rested her head on Vincent's shoulder, breathing in the scent of pine and clean night air and him. For long minutes, they simply existed, 3 small figures beneath an endless sky. Then Maria spoke, voice so quiet it almost dissolved into the darkness. "I keep waiting for it to end," she confessed. "For someone to say it was a mistake. That I don't belong here. That I have to go back to the cold and the empty fridge and the notices on the door." Vincent turned his head, lips brushing her temple. "It won't end," he promised. "Not while I breathe." Maria's tears fell silently onto his sweater. "I don't know how to be this person," she whispered. "The one who gets to stay. The one who gets to have this." Vincent lifted her chin gently. "You already are," he said. "You've been her all along. I'm just the one who finally saw it." He paused, voice rough with emotion. "I almost lost everything without ever knowing what everything was. My boys, you, the chance to be better. I won't waste another second pretending power matters more than people." Maria searched his face in the starlight. "You're really going to change everything?" she asked, soft, timid, still half afraid to believe. Vincent nodded. "The foundation starts next month. Offices in Vegas, then expanding. Emergency funds for hospital workers. Child care centers in every major medical building. Scholarships named for kids like Lily. Trauma support for families caught in crossfire they never asked for. And every dollar will come from the parts of my world I'm dismantling piece by piece." Maria's breath hitched. "And your sons. They'll grow up knowing their father chose kindness over fear," he said. "They'll know you. They'll know Lily. They'll know what love looks like when it's not bought or threatened." Lily yawned, curling tighter against Vincent's chest. Maria watched her daughter peaceful, safe, warm, and felt something inside her crack wide open. She had spent years ashamed of her thin arms, her patched clothes, her inability to provide. Now she lay beneath stars she had only dreamed of, held by a man who looked at her as though she had hung them herself. The shock of it was still violent. But the love hers for him, his for her, was fiercer. Vincent pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Thank you," he whispered, "for pulling me back, for showing me the way home." Maria turned her face into his neck. "Thank you," she whispered back, "for seeing me." They stayed until the cold began to creep in. Then Vincent carried Lily inside the warm cabin, while Maria gathered the blankets. The small space was simple, but perfect. Wood stove already, lit soft beds, a window framing the sky. Vincent laid Lily down, tucking the covers around her with careful hands. Maria watched from the doorway, heart so full it hurt. When he straightened, their eyes met across the room. Vincent crossed to her. He took her face in both hands, gentle, reverent. "I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you since the first night. Your voice reached me in the dark. I'll love you every night after this one." Maria's tears fell again, quiet, unstoppable. "I love you too," she whispered. "I didn't know how to say it before, but I do. I have for longer than I realized." Vincent kissed her, then slow, deep, filled with every promise he had ever broken and every one he would keep. When they parted, foreheads resting together, the stars kept watch through the window. Inside, two wounded hearts beat in rhythm. Outside, the constellations burned bright, ancient, unchanging proof that even the darkest nights could end in light. And somewhere in the vast sky above Nevada, new patterns had begun to form threads of mercy, kindness, and love, weaving 3 small lives into something eternal. The cabin at Great Basin still smelled faintly of pine and wood smoke when they returned to Las Vegas 3 days later. October 2025 had turned colder in the city. The desert wind carried a sharper bite, now rattling the windows of Vincent's penthouse, as though testing the new life they were trying to build. Maria stood at the floor-to-ceiling glass, overlooking the strip lily asleep against her shoulder. The glittering lights below felt alien, too bright, too loud after the quiet dark of the mountains. She still wore the same faded jeans and sweater she had packed for the trip. Vincent had offered closets full of new clothes, but she had shaken her head, voice soft and uncertain. "I'm not ready to look like I belong here yet." Vincent watched her from across the open living room, arms crossed, bruise on his cheek fading to yellow. The penthouse swallowed sound marble floors, leather sofas, art worth more than most people's homes. He had lived here for years without truly seeing it. Now every inch felt obscene next to the memory of Maria's frost-covered trailer, the thin mattress where she and Lily had huddled through winter nights. He crossed to her quietly. "You're shaking," he murmured, wrapping a cashmere throw around her shoulders. Maria leaned into him slightly, still hesitant, still half waiting for the dream to end. "I keep thinking about the stars," she whispered, "and how easy it would be to lose them again." Vincent pressed his lips to her temple. "You won't." But the city had other plans. The call came at 4:17 the next afternoon. Vincent's phone buzzed on the kitchen island, while Maria fed Lily bites of fresh apple in the breakfast nook. He glanced at the screen, Anthony, and answered immediately. Boss Anthony's voice was low, urgent. "Moretti's people didn't back off. They're moving on the family. Right now." Vincent's blood turned to ice. "Where?" "Hospital. Outpatient wing. Lily's pediatric follow-up was scheduled for today. The nanny took her and Luca and Matteo together, routine. Security detail was light. They hit fast. Black van. No shots. They took all 3 kids." The room tilted. Vincent's vision narrowed to a tunnel. Maria looked up from the high chair, smile fading as she read his face. "Vincent." He was already moving, keys and handcoat snatched from the chair. "Stay here," he ordered, voice flat with controlled fury. "Guards are coming up. Don't leave this floor." Maria stood so fast the stool scraped. "What happened?" Vincent paused at the door long enough to meet her eyes. "They took Lily. And my boys." Maria's knees buckled. She caught the counter breath coming in, short panicked gasps. No. Vincent crossed back to her in 2 strides, cupping her face. I'm getting them back, he said fiercely. All of them. I swear on my life. Maria's tears fell hot and fast. They're just babies, she choked. Lily, she's only 2, she won't understand. Vincent kissed her forehead, hard, desperate, then turned and left. The elevator ride down was silent except for the roar in his ears. Anthony waited in the underground garage with 4 men, armed, quiet faces carved from stone. Vincent slid into the passenger seat of the lead SUV. Talk, he said. Anthony drove fast, controlled. Moretti's second Carlo. He's running it. They want to sit down. Neutral ground. Downtown warehouse district. They're using the kids as leverage to force a carve-out of territory. They think you're weak now. They think love made you soft. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The warehouse district smelled of rust and old oil. Streetlights flickered. Shadows stretched long. Vincent stepped out alone. Anthony and the others fanned behind him at a distance. He walked straight toward the open loading bay where Carlo waited, flanked by 6 men. The rival capo smirked when he saw Vincent's face. You look tired, Russo. Fatherhood does that. Vincent stopped 10 feet away. Where are my children, Carlo? Jerked his head toward a closed office door at the back. Safe. For now. We talk terms, they stay safe. You walk away from 3 casinos on the east side, we walk away with the kids. Simple. Vincent's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. You took my sons. You took the little girl who pulled me back from death. You think there's a negotiation after that? Carlo laughed once, short, nervous. You're not in a position to. Vincent moved. Not violent. Precise. He closed the distance in 3 steps, grabbed Carlo by the throat, not hard enough to crush, just enough to lift him onto his toes, and slammed him back against a steel beam. The rival men drew weapons. Vincent's team stepped forward, guns raised but not firing. Silence stretched thin, electric. Vincent leaned in close. I've spent my life collecting fear, he said softly. Tonight I give it back. Carlo's eyes widened. Vincent released him sudden, abrupt. Carlo stumbled, gasping. Vincent straightened. Tell your men to stand down, he said, or I walk out of here and burn every Moretti holding in this city. And when the smoke clears, I'll come for you personally. Not with guns, with patience. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Carlo stared, sweat beading on his forehead. Vincent waited. Carlo raised a hand. Weapons lowered. Vincent turned toward the office door. Inside, the children sat on a dirty mattress, Lily crying softly. Luca holding Matteo's hand, both boys pale but unharmed. A single guard stood watch. He stepped aside when Vincent entered. Vincent dropped to his knees. Lily saw him first. Daddy Vin, she sobbed, running into his arms. Vincent gathered all 3 Lily against his chest. Luca and Matteo pressed to his sides. I've got you, he whispered, voice cracking. I've got you. He carried them out, Lily clinging to his neck, the boys holding his hands. Carlo watched in silence. Vincent paused at the loading bay. This ends here, he said. You touch my family again, there won't be a conversation. There'll be consequences. Carlo nodded once tight. Vincent walked into the night. Back at the penthouse, Maria waited at the door, barefoot eyes, swollen from crying. When she saw them, she collapsed to her knees. Vincent set the children down gently. Lily ran to her mother. Maria gathered her daughter close, sobbing into her hair. Luca and Matteo hesitated, then ran to her too. Maria opened her arms. The children buried themselves against her. Vincent stood over them, watching the woman who had once cleaned floors for survival now hold 4 small lives, as though they had always belonged to her. His heart tore, guilt, love, relief, crashing together in violent waves. He knelt beside them. Maria looked up, tears streaming. You brought them back, she whispered. Vincent cupped her face. I'll always bring them back, he said, because you're my reason to come home. Maria leaned into him, exhausted, trembling whole. The children slept between them on the wide sofa, safe, warm, loved. Outside, the city glittered on merciless indifferent. Inside, a new family had been forged in fire, and the thread that had begun in a coma room now bound them forever, stronger than any empire, brighter than any star. The penthouse lights were dimmed low that evening in late October, 2025. Las Vegas glittered far below like scattered jewels, indifferent to the quiet miracle, unfolding 30 floors above the street. Maria stood at the window again, the star-shaped diamond on her finger, catching stray light from the city. Lily slept in the nursery down the hall with Luca and Matteo, 3 small bodies curled together under one blanket, breathing in rhythm, as though they had always shared the same air. Maria had tucked them in herself, kissing each forehead, whispering the same lullaby she had sung through so many cold, wind-filled nights when the trailer walls rattled and hope felt thinner than the blankets. Vincent came up behind her silently. He had changed into a simple black sweater and slacks, no suit, no armor. The bruise on his cheek had faded to a faint shadow. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting gently on her shoulder. Maria leaned back into him, but her body trembled faintly. "You're still shaking," he murmured against her hair. She gave a small, broken laugh. "I keep waiting for the floor to open again," she whispered. "For someone to come and say I don't belong here. That this ring, this view, these children sleeping down the hall, they're not mine to keep." Vincent turned her slowly to face him. His hands framed her face, gentle, reverent. "They are yours," he said, "because you chose me when I was nothing but a body on a hospital bed. You spoke to me when the world had already written my obituary. You loved me before I even knew how to receive love." Maria's eyes shimmered. "I was so afraid," she confessed. "Every night in that trailer, wind screaming through the cracks, Lily burning with fever, and me counting the last pennies for medicine. I thought that was all life would ever be. Cold, empty, invisible." Vincent's thumbs brushed away the tears that slipped free. "I saw you," he said quietly. "Even when I couldn't open my eyes, I saw you. And every time I remember how close I came to losing you, losing them, I feel the ground crack open under me again." He paused, voice rough with the memory of the warehouse, the children's frightened faces, Maria's broken sobs at the door. "I almost failed you," he said. "My world almost took the only light I've ever known." Maria lifted her hands to his wrists, holding him there. "But you didn't," she whispered. "You brought them back. You brought yourself back. And you brought me with you." Vincent's breath shuddered out. He lowered his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said, raw, unguarded. "Not because you saved me, because you showed me what it means to be worth saving." Maria's tears fell freely now. "I love you too," she answered, voice soft but certain. "I love the man who knelt in front of me when he could barely stand. I love the father who carried our children out of danger. I love the person who looked at someone like me, thin, hungry, invisible, and decided I was enough." Vincent kissed her, then deeply, desperately, as though every second apart had been a lifetime. Maria rose on her toes, arms winding around his neck, fingers threading through his hair. The kiss was fierce, hungry, full of everything they had, almost lost nights of cold wind, days of empty cupboards, moments when hope had felt like a luxury neither could afford. When they parted, both breathing hard, Vincent reached into his pocket. He drew out a small velvet pouch. Maria's eyes widened. He opened it carefully. Inside lay 4 thin platinum bands, simple, unadorned, except for a tiny engraved star on each inner curve. "One for each of us," he said quietly. "Lily, Luca, Matteo, and you. Not engagement rings, family rings, so we never forget who we chose." Maria's hand shook as she took one. She slipped it onto her right ring finger beside the diamond. Vincent did the same. Then he knelt slowly, reverently, and called the children. They padded out, sleepy-eyed, rubbing faces, hair tousled. Vincent gathered them close. He slid a tiny band onto each small finger. Lily looked at hers in wonder. "Star," she whispered. Vincent smiled, eyes glistening. "Stars," he agreed. Maria knelt beside him. The 5 of them formed a small circle on the marble floor. 2 adults, 3 children, hands joined rings, catching the low light. Vincent looked at Maria over the children's heads. "This is our constellation," he said. "No matter what the city throws at us, no matter what shadows try to follow, we hold on." Maria nodded, tears falling freely. "We hold on," she echoed. Later, when the children were tucked back in, Vincent and Maria stood at the window again. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I spent decades building walls," he murmured. "You walked through every one without even noticing they were there." Maria turned in his arms. "And you gave me a sky full of stars when I thought I'd never see anything but darkness." Vincent kissed her again, slow, deep, full of promises kept, and promises still to come. Outside the city continued its restless spin. Inside, 5 hearts beat as one. Love, regardless of skin color, regardless of wealth or poverty, had proven stronger than any empire, brighter than any neon sign. Knowledge is the quiet light that guides us when everything else fails. Knowledge helps us see the humanity in every stranger. Knowledge teaches us that compassion costs nothing, yet changes everything. Knowledge reminds us that true strength lies in kindness, not in fear. Knowledge opens doors that power alone can never unlock. This story carries a powerful lesson about choosing love over division. It offers a lesson in humility when life gives us more than we ever expected. It teaches a lesson about healing wounds we did not even know we carried. It shares a lesson in forgiveness of others and of ourselves. It leaves us with a lesson that family is built not by blood alone, but by the courage to show up when it matters most. Education begins the moment we decide to see another person clearly. Education happens every time we choose mercy instead of judgment. Education grows when we listen instead of turning away. Education flourishes in small acts of daily kindness. Education reminds us that no one is invisible unless we choose to look past them. To everyone watching this video tonight, may you enjoy good health that carries you through every season, a joyful life filled with moments that make your heart full, and daily peace that settles deep inside your soul no matter what storms pass overhead. Thank you for spending this time with us on Alex Truths. If this story touched something inside you, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear that love can cross any divide. Tell us in the comments below, how did this story make you feel? Does it remind you of anything real in your own life? Share your emotions, your thoughts, your own quiet truths. The creator reads every comment and listens with an open heart. Until the next story, see you again very soon. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.